Well, you know what? Josh Heupel might be singing that song on the way to the bank. Big contract extension worth an estimated 9 million 9 times. Wow. Good stuff for him. Good for him. Tony Basilio joins us from Knoxville. He is not making 9 million a year. Frankly, none of us in this business are. Tony, does Heupel need to send a little like finder's fee to Tony Romo?
Wow. Ain't that the truth? No, I just think, that's the going rate. People have to kind of live with it. It's just part of being a sports fan these days, just kind of turning your head, on this stuff and accepting it for what it is. I mean, at Kentucky, I remember when it seemed outlandish, they were paying Bill Curry at Kentucky $800,000 to coach football in the mid 90s. And now they've got a coordinator up there at Kentucky making $1.8 million. You knew when Tennessee had their breakout season this year that Tennessee was going to pay the price for it. And truthfully, I don't know, does this increase? I was talking on my show today when it broke. Does this increase the pressure on Heupel? Not really. All these jobs are so pressure packed. But, he has his quarterback for the next couple of years. And if this kid stays healthy, Nico, this Tennessee team's going to be pretty good for the next couple of years. So we'll see what happens.
And here's the other thing, I guess, that Danny White can say. Okay, when I got here, here's what our season ticket sales were. And now that Heupel has finished this year, here's what our season ticket sales are. Do the math times however much. I mean, we both know, we all three know that this season not only got them more gate receipt money, but you got to think in contributions to University of Tennessee athletics, to the school in general. When the football team kicks butt, that's what happens.
Well, not only that, but I mean, look at the TV revenues. The TV money's getting ready to go out of sight. So, and that's why you're seeing the spending on these sports. I mean, they've made the decision that they're going to privately fund their payrolls on these football teams. And as long as that's the case, a lion's share of this money is going to filter to the coaches and to the administrators. I mean, Danny White himself's making $1.8 million a year or so. And his is a contract that continues to roll over in perpetuity. You talk about a guy that's got the right agent. That's a guy whose agent I want. Because Josh Heupel, eventually, they're going to walk him into an office and they're going to tell him, hey, listen, it's been a lot of fun for you. We'll pay you whatever you need. I mean, whether it's, now or 10 years from now, those guys all know that. How would you like to have a deal where you make $1.8 million a year and it just rolls over in perpetuity? That's the deal the AD talked them into when I guess they decided they needed an adult in the room, which is kind of what happened.
We all need that. So tell us a little bit about Heupel in the Knoxville community.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, he's very approachable. He's a very decent person. When you do what I do, George, and you know this, you are going to hear what kind of people these folks are, how they comport themselves. Are they big time? Do they take time? Do they make time? Are they humble? And Heupel's just, he is just a Dakotan made good. And he's just kind of an everyday guy. And I think in a sense, sort of getting a sense for who he is, I bet he's a little embarrassed today by the amount of money he's making. Because I bet that's kind of, I bet in the back of his mind, the thought is, I wonder if people think this has changed me, which I don't think it's going to change him. I think it changes some of these people. I'll put it this way. I would love to find out what it would do for me. But I don't know the answer to that question because that's just a astronomical amount of money to most of us that are pondering what it would be like to put your name on a contract like that.
Well, you've raised a really good issue because we all ask ourselves, if we hit the lottery in our
Yeah.
case, because obviously what we do isn't going to pay 9 million, but would it change us?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm afraid the answer for me would be, I think it would.
I agree with that.
And you know that there's some piece of this where I'm like, I'm glad I don't have to worry about that. Now I could use an extra fill in the blank, but I'm almost glad I don't deal with that.
And I think that's well put. I've often said in my prayer time, thank you, God, for only meeting my needs and a little more. And the truth is, most of us in this land that are watching us, I mean, we are truly in a land of plenty here. And, that's why I wonder with sports, just how much is too much. And these salaries, as they continue to skyrocket, at what point do working folks just say, hey, that was a lot of fun, but I'm going to watch it on television? You mentioned gate receipts before, and I just keep waiting for that breaking point to occur, because surely the breaking point has to happen. I mean, it has to, but people continue to invest more and more money in it. And, so, and good on Josh Heupel. I'm telling you guys, I think he's genuinely a pretty good fella, all in all.
Watson, it's all yours.
Tony, I vividly remember in the 80s when I left the University of Cincinnati to go to Rice.
Mm-hmm.
And big headlines everywhere. If not the highest paid coach in the country, one of the highest paid coaches in the country. And I got absolutely eat alive. He left for money. The city of Cincinnati, Mike McGee, my athletic director, who, by the way, left 7 months later to go to Southern Cal. but when I left, he ate me up. And it shows you how times have changed.
Mm-hmm.
That was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I can vividly remember articles, front page headline articles of guy just got bought, doesn't care about anything but money. Here's a young guy that doesn't understand how to go to work and win his way through things. All these things said, and it wasn't anywhere close to that kind of money, believe me. But it's just amazing now that the thought of money in the college game has a complete different mindset, Tony, than it did back in those days. I said on the air here earlier, I don't know if you were listening, I can remember Coach Bryant paying assistants $25,000, $30,000 to be there, and said that's plenty. We don't need to pay ours anymore. And most of them stayed. They wouldn't leave. It wasn't the money. They were staying because they wanted to be on that staff and learn football or whatever. I sit now and watch, and with a $9 million put on a guy, and going to the Orange Bowl is a lot more money. Your university gets a lot more money when you go to one of those top bowls like that. So there's a lot that goes into this. But Tony, what I've always said, what changes these coaches is when they start saying, this is about me instead of where I am. That's when they get in trouble. If the head coach understands when he's at Oklahoma and he's at Tennessee, and yes, he's had a lot to do with get Tennessee back, but Tennessee's always been one of those type programs. When you start saying this is all about me and it's not about this university and what I get to work with here and all the pieces I can put together to put a great program, that's when these guys, their egos get bigger than the university, and that's when they get in trouble.
And you can see it.
You do see it. You do see it.
Yeah. I don't think this guy, I mean, I'll just tell you, I don't think that's going to be a problem for him. I knew from Butch Jones, he was in trouble when he showed up with a car that had the open wings on it. And then he showed up at a football game, and he had a couple of armed security guards, like, I don't know, like he's a member of the Beatles or something back in the day at Shea Stadium. I don't know. And then one time they were at a football game over at Catholic, where he's watching his son play Catholic high school locally, and he had a guy holding his umbrella for him, Watson. Watson, when you're standing out in the rain and you have somebody holding your umbrella for you, it might mean this thing has changed you. That might be a pretty good is that a pretty good indication, Watson?
It's a great indication. It just always, Tony, in the rest of our lifetime, watch these dudes and see when they start getting successful, how do they handle it?
Yeah.
And
And
you're
like
going to
George
see
said,
the one
yeah,
that's going to stay successful and the one that's not.
well, it's hard.
Something else I thought about this morning, Tony. You're sitting in a pretty good spot right now, bud. Let's see. Football's in the top 5. Basketball's in the top 5. Baseball is rolling. I mean, you're sitting in a pretty good spot right now. It's been a while since the University of Tennessee is anywhere close to something like this.
Yeah, and my baseball team played in the World Series in the pro ranks, and my football team is getting ready. I got my Randall Cunningham jersey.
You got your Randall Cunningham jersey on, yeah.
But the I don't know what to do with myself with all the good news. Because I'm like a Negadelphian to the core and a Negaval, and I don't know what to do with myself right now. I will tell you this: it's interesting watching how one program feeds another on a campus like Tennessee's, and how these kids all go to each other's events. I think that's one of the neat. There's a real collegial, if I could use that term, sense of togetherness here and synergy. That's I talk to coaches and they say, there's a real sense of camaraderie. There's not a lot of backbiting. There's not a lot of jealousy. And again, I think that football coach having the right mentality. I had Tony Vitello on my program a couple months back, and I mentioned Heupel to him. And I said, Tony, he seems like an emotionally intelligent guy. He said, man, that's exactly who that dude is. He said, compared to our other football coach who was here when I got here, who wouldn't let you get near him, he said, this guy is just a normal, can I help you, coach? Anything you need from us, please let us know. We're all in this together, which, Watson, kind of speaks to what you were talking about, which is the real smart guys in life are the guys that understand that we're all just kind of caretakers.
Exactly
no matter
right.
what you're doing, and I don't get here without standing on the shadow of or the shoulders of a George Plaster, who's a pioneer in our deal. And he didn't get there without, some of the pioneers before him. And I mean, we all have to recognize that. It is true, though. Really,
no,
George. And that's the thing. The smart people know that, though.
Well, but when you lose that, it's when you get in trouble, where you don't understand where you came from and what got you where you are, and then the place you're at. That's the part I think these coaches forget.
Right.
That we all don't get those jobs. We all don't get those top jobs.
Right.
One reason I think you've got good camaraderie at that school, to me, Tony, it's not like Alabama where it's been a football school forever. It's not like Kentucky that's been or Indiana, it's been basketball school forever. University of Tennessee has been one of those few that's been pretty solid in everything for a long time. And that's why I think it's one of the better jobs in the country. I've always said the University of Tennessee is one of the top 10 jobs in the country. This is one of the reasons I think why. Basketball was good with Mears and Dickey and the different times through that time. Women's basketball. It's been good in all ways. It's never been called a football school, in my opinion. I don't feel that way. It's never been called a basketball school.
Mm-hmm.
Tennessee is not put in that Kentucky type mode to me. And I think Kentucky football still fights that today in some ways. And we saw it happen with the two coaches kind of getting into it a little bit during the year.
That was unreal.
You're not going to see that at certain places where it's not that way. So I think that's one of the advantages Tennessee has, in my opinion. The other thing I'd say about these coaches, we've lost football coaches becoming ADs, Tony. That doesn't happen anymore. Matter of fact, I guess I'm one of the last ones ever.
Mm-hmm.
And but now with these football coaches dealing with money like they are through all this NIL stuff, they probably now could become ADs. They're having to deal with money in such different ways than they've ever had to deal with before. And I'm not joking about that.
No,
I mean now you're coming up with plans on paying everybody on your team.
Well, and as you know,
they're going to pay everybody on the team. So I mean, they're getting stuff they never had to do before as football coaches. I can tell you that.
And I'm not going to cry for them. They those guys want to bitch and moan, right, about how hard it is. Go out and work in the real world.
Yeah.
Go out there with the single mom that's waiting tables and has 2 kids at home. Those are people that have it hard because they have to balance a payroll on their football team or figure out how to allocate NIL money. I mean, don't cry for me, Argentina, you know, when you're making that kind of money. But I will tell you this, as the pay escalates, the shelf life of these guys gets shorter and shorter. The what fans will tolerate gets shorter and shorter. It used to be at one time you got a job, you got 5 years. Now you get a job, you might get 2 if you're not real good. I mean, that's the reality. But you're paid life-changing money. Life-changing money. I was talking to an administrator who told me that friend of his who had become a pro coach, you know, who had ascended in the pro ranks, called him up and he said, man, I'm really sorry for you. You've had a rough year, blah, blah, blah. And the guy says, listen, when I signed my name on that check, I got more money coming to me guaranteed than I ever thought. Don't get me wrong. It sucks to lose, but please don't shed a tear for me. I mean, it's hard, but it's not that hard. You know, I know what they're going to do. They're going to walk me out the door and give me $15 million. I think I can live with it, you know?
No, the contracts are written now, Tony, where they get that money a lot. And the old contracts of coaches were not written that way. Right. And that's my generation's fault. But we were in a generation where we said, okay, this is a contract, I'll accept it. Now these agents go in. It's a total different world. The other thing I think is changing it, Tony, and George, I'll throw it back to you after this, but the other thing that's making it quicker on winning is this transfer portal. That's changing the mindsets of everybody now. So now they're saying, whoa, now it's not 25 a year. You can bring in 40 new faces here and change your team in 1 year. And so transfer portal is going to speed up the number of years these coaches get in a patient way. Believe me, it's going to.
Well, and I'll tell you this right now. I don't know that I'd want to be in that business right now because of the transfer portal. We were doing a preview on Georgia today, and I was talking with Anthony Dasher down there. And Georgia basketball plays in here, and he said, you know, Tony, they have a pretty decent record. They're 3-3 in the league and like 12-6 overall, whatever the number is. It's a lot better than they thought it was going to be. He said, but they had a kid quit their team right around Christmas time, and now they're getting whispers the guy's on his way to Texas Tech, and they're convinced internally that Texas Tech basically called them and said, hey, why don't you just come down here and join our deal and forget about them. And I mean, guys were leaving at mid-season. It's like they're not even trying to hide the fact that we're just going to recruit kids off other people's rosters. And man, we need commissioners in these sports in a big time way. That the head of the NCAA, that's not going to work. So that is certainly one change. But, you know, the sports themselves, here's a crazy thing. The numbers for college football right now are as good as they've ever been.
Yep.
People can talk about all that. And really, at the end of the day, what matters is how many eyeballs look at a television on any given Saturday or Sunday. And as long as college football is growing the way that it's growing, this money's the tip of the iceberg. The money Josh Heupel got today, it's tip of the iceberg. And by the way, I call that money when they write their contract. If a guy was any good, why would he need buyout money? Because I call it failure money, Watson. That's what we ought to call that stuff. If you fail here, this is how much money I'm going to pay you. I'd look at an agent and go, hey, whoa. What other part of our society can I walk into somebody and say, now, what are you going to give me when you let me go? Let's work on that pack. Huh? I'm not here hiring you to let you go. But that's where we are.
That's the differences in today's world, Tony, there.
That's where we are.
It wasn't that way 25 years ago, even. That few a time back, it wasn't that way.
Yeah. And shame on you for leaving Cincinnati, by the way, for Rice.
Thank you, Tony.
I want to get that.
I really appreciate that, buddy. Thank you very much. And even on top of that, I'll say go Eagles for you, okay? Even though you took a shot at me, I'm going to say go Eagles.
Hey, I hear you're saying that my Eagles have the best team left, so I appreciate it.
They have the most complete team left in the deal.
Yeah, I hope you're not putting the kiss of death on us.
Tony, I got two questions for you. The first one, I kind of want to touch a little bit on where you were going. You kind of beat me to the punch a little bit, but you talked about at the end of the day, the eyeballs are still on the TV.
Yeah.
And, it's weird to be in this position and to be really disgusted in a lot of ways with where college football is going and the things that we see, and not just college sports in general.
Right.
And yet it doesn't stop me from every Saturday in the fall from going and watching college football. And I guess the question for you is, do you feel like there even is a breaking point where this gets so out of control? Or does it seem like, no, this is, I mean, you talked about it being the tip of the iceberg.
No.
Is any of the disgust around the country, because I don't think we're the only 5 people here that know that college football is a broken system right now with how things are going. But are we even close to a standpoint of where college football has to fix itself? Or is it, no. The interest is still way too high that college football, they could pretty much get away with whatever they want and nothing's going to change.
Well, how great's the game? I mean, I'm a baseball fan, and I've come to the conclusion they can't ruin it. They've tried so hard to destroy Major League Baseball. In 94, they just decided we're not going to play a World Series. Everybody showed up in 95. Now, of course, they inflated the guys and had a home run chase and had kind of a shameful era to those of us that like baseball history. But at the end of the day, major college football continues to fall forward. I mean, think of the absurdity of Nebraska in the league that they're in, Penn State in the league that they're in. Nebraska geographically has so screwed themselves up. I mean, think about the fact that USC and UCLA are going to join the Big Ten. I mean, think about how silly that is.
Yep.
They cannot mess it up. At some point, though, the ticket buyer says, you know what? These people don't need my money. It's got to happen at some point. It's got to happen. Because it's not college sports anymore. It's still great. Don't get me wrong. But it's not the relationship. And this is what's going to be interesting here is seeing the way Tennessee fans act towards this Nico kid who has a alleged $2 million a year NIL deal. If you get off to a slow start and you're a quarterback in a market like this, they're hard on you.
Yeah. If
you get off to a slow start and you're in a market like this and the fans know you're making $2 million a year, boy, I don't want to be there for that.
No. I got one more for you.
Yeah.
Obviously Heupel is really well received. You've spoken really, really highly of him, just even in this conversation of, got nothing but singing his praises. Was he received like that when he came into Tennessee? Tell me what your initial reaction was when you got the hire, when you found out that he was the guy and that he was the hire.
No, we thought it was crazy. But at the same time, they were put in such a spot that Tony Elliott's the guy they went after, who's at Virginia now. At the time, he was a hot coordinator at Clemson. And they went in on him not once, but twice. Now, it's funny. Our fan base does not like me saying that because they want to have revisionist history that they just went down and got Josh Heupel. And, and that makes Danny White. Listen, Danny White's a guy who found the guy that's at Buffalo that's now at Leopold, who's now at Kansas. I mean, that's a pretty good hire. In fact, that's a very good hire. He's the guy that hired Heupel at Central Florida. That's a pretty good hire. Brought him here to Knoxville, wins in his second year. To be honest with you, the question about Josh Heupel was always going to be, we knew his offense worked in the league because it worked at Missouri. The question was always going to be with him, is he a voracious enough recruiter? Will he surround himself with enough recruiters? Well, I'm not trying to diminish the job they do as recruiters. But the truth is, when you get all hands or most hands pulling in the same direction at a spot like this, and the year he comes here is the year that the NIL thing begins, and then the people at On3 say that Tennessee has the best NIL program in the country in terms of the most buttoned up and the most together, that's a pretty good combination. Plus, I think that guy has the emotional capacity and emotional intelligence of the great pro coaches.
Yeah.
Which is to say, when I talk to his kids, what they say is, he doesn't treat us like we're 18. He treats us like we're men. And they have these expectations on us. And if we meet these expectations, they pretty much leave us alone. And he doesn't have to like be liked by them. He doesn't have, like, Butch Jones was a guy who had to talk till till the cows came home, and he had this slogan and that slogan. And then the other guy couldn't speak at all, the last guy. And, and this guy here is just sort of himself, but they treat people with respect. And another thing that those players say now is, we don't get cussed at.
Yeah.
And George, and Watson knows this. If you treat professional athletes that way, they'll shut off on you. They don't have time for that. It's like, and that's the age we're living in now. These guys are professional athletes. That's the, you can't MF kids anymore. It's a different era we're living in.
No, you can't do that anymore. And this transfer portal is making it even more so.
There you have it.
Making it even more so, Tony. And you made a point of exactly what I was saying just a minute ago. Everybody is saying Tennessee might have one of the best NIL packages in the country. That's because it's the University of Tennessee.
That's right.
They can put that together. There's a lot of schools that can't do that.
That's
and
right.
That's why Josh needs to understand that. Stay into what he's doing and don't put it all on yourself. And the university is the reason he's getting a chance to get these really good players, because of the money they've come up with to get these good players. Now, he's going to get them, but that's what I was trying to make a point of earlier. There's only so many of those in the country that can do that, Tony.
Yeah. And how many are
Tennessee
there?
is one of them.
Yeah. How many are there? 10, 12, 13,
15
14,
at the most.
15?
15 at the most.
And 4 or 5 of them at any one time, guys, can't get out of their own way. Those
You
two
got it
types
right.
of schools, those two
Including
types of
Tennessee
schools,
for a while.
That's right.
Including Tennessee for a while.
That's exactly right.
Alabama for a while.
That's the cycle of it. That's what makes the whole thing interesting is you look at an Alabama and you say, okay, you lost both your coordinators. You're without a quarterback this year. Your coach is really angry because David Pollock said what he said about him to his face, and nobody does that to Nick Saban, yada, yada, yada. But do they have enough team this year? I don't know. Do they? I mean, I look at them and I say, you got 2 or 3 losses. Are they getting ready to kind of cycle back a little bit? Because somebody always cycles back in this deal. Nothing lasts forever in this space.
Hey, I got to step in here. I guess it's called go to the commercial break. Good luck Sunday.
Thank you.
700 section of that stadium not only will be rocking, there won't be a sober person up there.
No, and it was almost the Cowboys that were going to land in that gig. And my advice would have been, if you're a Cowboy fan, don't wear a jersey in that place. I think it's okay for 49er fans to do it, I think. But
Cowboys,
a Cowboy,
shaky.
that would not have been good for the right to go to a Super Bowl. That would not have been a pretty picture.
Tony, we'll do it again next Tuesday. Thank you as
guys.
always.
Thank you. Thank
See
you.
you, Tom.
We'll go to the break
God
on
bless.
that. Our thanks to Tony Basilio, who is awesome as always.